Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How North America's Largest 6 GHz Network Was Deployed. Before we begin, I want to introduce today's presenters. We have Cameron Kilton, CTO at Nextlink, Tim Sill, VP of Technology and Business Development at Alpha Wireless, and Bruce Collins, Senior Director of PLM at Cambium Networks. I also want to encourage everyone to ask any questions you have in the Questions tab on the control panel. With that, I'll hand it off to you, Bruce.
Great, thanks, Lexi, and thanks everybody for joining today. We have a interesting discussion around 6 gigahertz and how Nextlink's been deploying 6 gig with the Alpha Wireless antennas and the Cambium ePMP platform. So we've got some material prepared as usual, but I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. So since we have the group here, we'll kind of do it a little bit as a panel. If you have questions, please chime in. We'll go through the material, but certainly would like to make sure we answer any questions you might have. So the flow of the session is we'll have each of us kind of give a little background on what we've been up to. We'll start with Cam, with what Nextlink's been doing with 6 gig. Then Tim will go through the Alpha Wireless portfolio. I'll give you an update on the ePMP portfolio, how the AFC is working, and a quick roadmap update, and then we'll leave it wide open for questions. So thanks both Cam and Tim for joining. I'm really looking forward to this discussion for a while now. And Cam, I'm going to hand it over to you next and kind of let us know what you've been up to with 6 gig over at Nextlink.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Bruce. First one, guys, I'm Cameron Kilton, Chief Technology Officer at Nextlink. A lot of you have met me, I'm sure, throughout the years in various capacities. But I've been with Nextlink going on 4.5 years now. We've been started deploying the 4600 platform in effectively March of last year. So obviously it wasn't quite ready yet in the 6 gig space, but we were deploying it in Uni 3 at that time and leveraging the Alpha Wireless antennas to do so, to make sure they supported that band. They were kind of giving a list of requirements for us at the time as we were looking to preload as many sites as possible, obviously with the ambition and excitement that 6 gigahertz would be coming, and try to get ahead of some of our obligation construction sites and things of that nature. And in the interim, we were operating in 5.8 with the 4600C SM at the time, which supports 5.8 as well. So that gave us a lot of good flexibility and gave us a little bit of a head start to get deployed. Typically speaking, I don't necessarily recommend deployment strategies like that, but Cambium has kind of had a track record of getting the software we needed when we were expecting it over time, and been in good communication with us over the last year or so as we've been working through the deployment. You know, this is the things that we're finding in the field. These are some of the bugs that we come up with. Naturally, with any new product, we do come across them, and this was no different. But we've been leaning pretty heavily into 6 gigahertz as a whole, and Cambium has been the lead deployment for us so far. We have a little over 2,100 sectors deployed across 354 sites today, covering somewhere like 18,000 square miles. Like it's a pretty significantly sized deployment at this point. Obviously, a lot of it's in the rural countryside for us, so we don't have a ton of locations with heavy density. So subscriber counts are kind of mitigated. So we don't have the, any 40 or 50, 60 sub APs yet, but we do have some, 15, 20, 25 AP situations out there. And with the software configuration as it sits today, we're able to handle that without much problem. Recently, obviously, loading into 160 megahertz wide channels, we've been pleasantly surprised on some of the performance characteristics that we're seeing there. Very excited about it, and kind of flipping into some pictures. We'll show you some pictures here on the slide deck. Some of the deployments that we have done, you get a good sense real quickly of some of the rural areas that we're serving. So probably covering more cows than homes in most cases, but this is kind of just a snapshot of 3 different sites and a lot of farmland, as it doesn't take much to deduce in that situation. And one of our favorite things that we run into, or not necessarily run into, but one of the favorite things that we like about pairing it with the Alpha antenna is ease of installation. It's one less in this case, it's 3 less antennas we need to hang on a site to cover 360 degrees. But more importantly, on leased towers, we have a significant reduction in rent. So OpEx expenditures. So each one of these configurations effectively can save us anywhere between $200 and $300 a month in tower rent. And a lot of us, and us no different, we still build a lot of towers, and obviously rent's not as much of a concern in those situations, but trying to be consistent across deployment is, especially when you have as many towers as we have, nearly a little over 3,000 of them. When you have that many sites, every little thing adds up, and we have a number of sites that are leased. So trying to be consistent, reducing that OpEx, speed up deployment, and a lot of this stuff can be pre-packaged on the ground, obviously, like a lot of us do already with other things, but be able to knock out kind of 2 birds in 1 stone situation has worked out really well for us so far. We kind of gave Alf a list of this is what we needed to do, this is what is capable, and this is what's possible. And we kind of found a good middle ground of what we were looking for. They've been very involved with feedback from not just me. They're very engaged with our field teams on whether it be the type of nuts we're using, all the way to how do we route the GPS cable on these things and making sure that's as clean as we possibly can be, with a cost benefit in consideration. Can you always make it a little bit better? Sure you can, but eventually costs get crazy. So we have a pretty good mix of what we're looking for across the footprint now. We've really been happy with the performance of these. They're getting us effectively what we anticipated. We expect about 2 to 2.3 miles using 4600C. We can see about a gigabit worth of coverage down and about 500 megs up at that distance is kind of our tested and verified throughput at that distance. We haven't used any 4625, so I'll say that we've been only using the 4600Cs at this time, strictly because they operate in Uni 3. So we have a little bit more flexibility. And the reason for that is we have, while we do count on 6 gigahertz, if the AFC becomes unavailable for whatever reason, or we have a GPS error, we have the flexibility to drop it into Uni 3 in a smaller channel and at least get the customers online while that's being troubleshot. So that's something that we've been able to leverage, and the 4625 does not operate in Uni 3. So this gives us a little bit more flexibility, obviously a little bit more of a CPE cost, but allows us to make sure we're taking as good care of the customers as we possibly can in the event of an issue, which we've seen in a few situations. We've seen some channel availability problems. We've seen AFC issues. Obviously, everything's kind of new. So this gives us some power to take control of the customer experience as quickly as we can throughout that avenue.
All right, that's great, Cam. And you pretty much have standardized this as a cookie cutter approach. So every one of your towers is do you fully populate all sectors on every tower, or do you pick and choose directionally, or how's that go?
I would say it's better than the 80-20 rule. We're probably 95-5 rule in this situation, but yeah, it's just kind of our cookie cutter approach. Azimuth dependent, we do take into consideration where the people are, obviously, and we're tuning the azimuths appropriately, and that's all in the pre-design and verification phase through QSE. We've learned a lot over the last 4.5 years since I've been here, and clearly, in the 12 years we've been in business, from where we were to where we are today, and the team has taken a lot more methodical approach, because this, a lot of us that have been doing this for a long time, it's not always a science, sometimes it's an art, and looking for, finding good channel space, making sure we have good back-to-back channel reuse, because we're using 360 megahertz channels in most cases, and we're using an AB reuse or ABC reuse across the site. So everything's in a back-to-back configuration, and we're having good success in doing so far.
Okay. And then I had a question come in here about what are you using on the subscriber side?
Right now we're using the 4600C connectorized unit. We're testing. We've been using the Cambium antenna. I forget the part number. just started actually testing the new 29 dB connectorized unit, or I don't want to call it connectorized, but twist port unit from RF Elements for longer shots. We're going to start doing not necessarily longer shots, but better link budget. We're going to test that out as well for the subscriber side and see how well it behaves.
Okay. And then last one, and we'll move on to Tim. But everybody else, if you have questions, please chime in. You mentioned the density is fairly low on these, and I think you said maybe the maximum is maybe 30 or so that you have deployed, but what would you say is a more typical density that you're looking to serve with these?
Yeah, sure. Right now, our per AP density is quite low. Given, I mean, look at the pictures, right? I mean, you don't see the whole lot of houses there, all things considered. But in some of the more populous areas where we're actually doing some overlays, you know, we're holding the kind of keys close. On this one, we're not opening them wide up and say, hey, we're going to go throw 50, 60 people at it. The software is not there yet, but we have a lot of confidence. You know, Cambium has proven over time past that they do deliver. And is it always at the timeline we're all looking for? No, I've never met a vendor where it is on the timeline we're looking for at the same time. So yeah, we do know there's some work to be done on the TDD software. We do know there's some work to do on MU-MIMO. We are seeing MU-MIMO. We've had some good success with the WLR mode, which is overwhelmingly what we're running right now. While we're still working through some kinks here and there, but we do have several pilot sections of the network which are running various software releases, doing different tests and optimization, including a campus network here at headquarters in Hudson Oaks, Texas. We have several locations set up with trying to maximize the MU-MIMO load and load test that. So we have right now we have 20 workstations I'll call set up, pointing to an AP spread across the beam to do heavy load testing and see how well that behaves. And every release is a little different. We find something, we get that feedback right back to Cambium, whether it be the tech support files, this, that, and the other. But we're always getting better with every release, which is obviously what we're looking for. I'm very excited to see what some of the next couple releases have. They're looking pretty promising, whether it be some AFC feature changes that we've requested, all the way to some channel optimization stuff that we've noticed.
All right, great. Well, this is impressive deployment. So congratulations on what you've accomplished to date. Let's
I could take claim for it, but I'm going to congratulate all of our field teams. They've been working their tail off. So.
I can imagine it's been quite the undertaking. Yeah. Let's see. Let's move to Tim at Alpha Wireless. Do you want to kind of introduce yourself here and then kind of go through how how Cam is using the antenna from Alpha in these sectors?
Yeah, definitely. Bouncing. So I'm Tim Sill, VP of Technology and Business Development for Alpha. I've been with them since 2017. The company itself started in 2007 and has really, cut their teeth on different technologies, but a lot of it was on the TDD line. So we're real familiar with that experience, and we've developed a lot of patents and other things around the technologies and stuff since then. We leverage our tier one type of mentality into the WISP space. So, we deliver a solution that's really designed to be a full turnkey solution that allows you to meet your requirements, but also meets all the stringent RF performance that you would typically see from a tier one company that would be testing it to the nines. And Cam definitely does that. So he really makes us, work hard and sharpen our pencils on that. So that's been some of the benefits of this development effort together, has really shown through working and collaborating with them on our deployments. The next slide we have is a little bit of more background on this one here. We actually developed a solution working with Cam. We started working on a 5 gig solution, and then as discussions moved along, he saw the need for a 6 gig. So we wanted to make sure we built a solution that would cover both his 5 and 6 gig requirements. So we worked with them to develop a future-proof solution that as he's deploying deploying his network, he doesn't have to go back and worry about doing a major swap on the systems. You know, we worked with him, got the requirements, making sure we met the key deliverables of performance and OpEx reduction. So, you know, we've created this really nice form factor that allows them to not have to do a bunch of engineering or you know, scab work to try to get the Cambium radio onto the back of the antenna. We integrated all of it very seamlessly. And, you know, by working with them, you know, it really did meet their overall design requirements and helps them with reducing their deployment costs, you know, time on the ground, and then also, you know, what it takes to actually get the thing mounted on the towers themselves. You know, which again relate, you know, it depending on your company, your actual solutions, you know, you have, you know, different MLA partners that you have to deal with. Some are a little more flexible than others. You know, any way to help yourself in those lease negotiations is an advantage. On to the next slide. Little more information about the antenna. You know, it's set up for 2 sectors. It's 6 degrees apart, 4 ports per sector to integrate with the Cambium ePMP platform. It actually is you know, provides a nice compact solution, allows you to do a bunch of pre-assembly work on the ground. So that way when you go up to a tower, you don't have your tower crews dangling out there trying to assemble something that can be easily done on the ground at a lower risk and quicker pace. You know, it's optimized for the multi-user MIMO and maximum throughputs for both the 3000 and 4000 series radios of Cambium. It does cover all of the different Wi-Fi 6 UNI bands up to 6.8 gigahertz range there. So, and it's a nice small form factor too. It's only 25 inches tall and about 13 inches wide. So it's really, you know, it really works out well from the standpoint of integrating everything and helping to reduce key elements that trigger MLA type of points. You know, it's like, you know, total number of attachment points, total number of elements on the tower, wind loading, weight, all those type of things. It's really designed to help the operator reduce those type of trigger points. The next slide gives a little more information about it. It's a 5.7 to 6.875 gigahertz range. It's 63 degree beam width, 18 dB gain. It's got 27 degrees, greater than 27 degrees of front to back ratio. VisWAR of 1.5 or less, and it's really again, it's optimized to provide the performance not only of your coverage area, but also helping with your areas close up. So if you deploy these, you know, in a taller deployment type of factor to cover more cows, as Cameron says, then you know you're able to help cover the folks that are in close with the null fill type capabilities that we've integrated into the solution itself. So, and you know, from a zoning and networking planning perspective, it really makes it easy to meet that need. You know, like Cam talks about, it's like, you know, trying to create that 90-10 rule, you know, type of thing, or 80-20 rule. You know, if you can standardize your towers, you know, then any type of technician can go out and touch these sites. They're very familiar with what's going on, how they're set up. There's no gotchas when you get out there to go, wow, okay, this thing was not integrated properly type of thing. So it's really about consistency and repetitiveness. And then the next slide is a little depiction of, you know, showing, you know, really the key values of the integrated solution going from a 6-sector site to a 3-sector site. You know, again, it helps you reduce the number of attach points. It's very, the actual radome itself is designed in such a manner to help with wind loading. So it's designed to help shed wind rather than create loading. So that again helps from a tower perspective. So you don't have to get potentially into situations where you have to do, you know, structural modifications, those type of things to help with, you know, increasing the loading because of the new attachments you put on there. And then the last one is for kind of the tech geeky kind of guys of it, like we have, is, you know, we like to look at patterns and stuff like that. So, you know, shows you the plus and minus, you know, 6 degrees between the sectors on the horizontal patterns there, but then also on the vertical pattern, it shows you how we've come in and actually increased the lower side lobes to help with null filling. This particular unit that we're working with Cameron on, those guys are on, has a built-in 2-degree down tilt. And then it also has mechanical tilt capabilities too. So if you need a little additional capabilities, you can actually put it in from a manual standpoint that's built into the brackets and allows you to do that fairly quickly in your setups. So that's kind of a summary overview of everything we've done and on the solution itself, and working closely with Cameron and the Cambium team there on getting these things integrated and working properly.
And I'll add a little more too. Just, you know, Alpha's a little bit more conservative on their numbers, which I guess is a good thing. You know, the front to back ratio, particularly on the spec sheet, says 27. I'd say that's the worst case we've seen. The actual testing and chamber verifications, we see closer to 30, and in some cases even a little bit higher, or better, I should say. Front to back ratio, which has allowed us to obviously take advantage of the channel reuse that we're doing on the back-to-back scenario. So 27 is the worst case, and it does exist at a very specific frequency on a very specific polarity. And generally, I think that's sitting somewhere around 5.9-ish. I don't remember exactly in front of me, but it was one particular area where it popped up in one example. But overwhelmingly, we see a 30 dB front to back ratio.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. Yeah, that's, you know how the tier 1 guys are. You know, they see the worst case scenario. That's what we have to report on. So that's what we do. But to your point, yeah, we really designed to really exceed those standards. So thanks.
Yeah, and I thought it'd be worth calling out because the tier 1 guys are definitely always looking for that worst case scenario because it does apply to them naturally. But in my cases, I work around it almost always. So I do want to highlight that. I appreciate you guys being super conservative in your numbers, but we're doing better than that.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for pointing that
out. One kind of general question I had for both of you is we do a lot of historical WISP deployments are 4 sectors with AB channel reuse, and you've gone with a 3-sector ABC reuse. Can you talk a little bit about what drove that decision, or you know, how I'm sure you have experience, Cam, with both types of approaches, but what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So the typical 4-sector approach, which we did on the ePMP 3000 platform for the longest time, you know, it did pretty well until you get to obviously a capacity issue. Now I'm adding a 5th antenna. Well, with this particular antenna, I am out the cost of access points. I actually, like, the cost of the sector is a de minimis amount of dollars relative to what I'm spending OpEx wise. Now, of course, if you own the site, you're not thinking that way, but I have to look at a blended average. Is I can get 6 access points in a 3 access point footprint. It simplifies my installation. It allows me better capacity for the site in general. Have obviously 6 APs is better than 4, obviously assuming you get the channel space to perform. But I don't have to worry about any capacity in the immediate future, and it allows me to have good channel reuse. But I also, at the same time, I actually don't have to put up a 4th. You know, on the optical version of it, like, I'm not putting up 4 antennas. I'm putting up 3 antennas. Granted, they act as 6, but that simplifies a lot of things. And even in a 4-sector deployment, like, there's certain sites that are grain silos, small roan towers that we're on, that a 4-sector actually causes so much more wind load than these 3, that it caused a lot more tower twist and things like that we certainly don't want. So this is actually a little bit better form factor, a little bit tighter, allows us to squeeze a lot more capacity in. So as far as capacity per tower site, we're obviously up by, you know, a fair percentage by being able to squeeze that in there. And there's a lot of spectrum. So if we have the spectrum, why not? But we also been doing this in the ePMP 3000 before we transitioned. We transitioned out of the 4-sector. We transitioned into a 6-sector or 6 AP 3-sector design about 2.5 years ago, and we're able to bring capacities up there. MU-MIMO works great still. I wouldn't recommend going much smaller than the 65 to 60 degree antenna for multi-user MIMO. It's going to have a really hard time trying to get it. But we do see still a very high functioning amount of multi-user MIMO in the 3K series. And we're certainly looking forward to what the 4K series is going to bring once we know we get that software where we want it. The industry is going to be better for it once it's there.
All right, great.
I'll add Bruce too. I mean, is there a wrong way or right way to deploy a network? You could argue that all day long. This is a tool in our toolbox. We have sites that we still deploy. We deploy only, the connectorized AP because there's not enough density to even support a 4-port unit because we're literally covering 2 homes. So this is a tool. We like this tool. It helps us scale quickly. It certainly gives us coverage, but it's just a tool. It's not all the tools.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, great. And I do have one question that came in on the chat window here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about 6 gigahertz in a few minutes. But the question was, what kind of experience are you seeing with line of sight, near line of sight, and range? Are you locking this purely for line of sight, or are you kind of leaving some room for the installer to make that call, or how does that work for you?
We give the installer has metrics they have to hit. We set up baselines. Obviously, the better the signal, the better their performance. So it also depends on what the customer is sold. Do your best to get the signal required to achieve the speed required. And of course, at the end of the day, it's still a wireless system. So we want to keep the capacities and connection systems up as high as we possibly can to not cause any degradation down the line. So we don't want to sacrifice for one customer that could impact 10 others. So yes, we do have requirements that are needed. As far as distance, I mean, we can get out. We've successfully gotten 4.5 miles. Now we're not getting 4.5 miles at a gig. It's just like any other technology. Once we're getting out there a little ways, we're going to start seeing that stuff slim down on throughput. But we are seeing around 2 miles at gigabit capable speeds. We have a number of customers on that already today, and we don't have a ton of load on those APs yet. They may have 10 or 12 subscribers on it, but we're having good success with it as it sits today under that assumption. And we're capping at 20 subs overwhelmingly across the footprint. Now we do have a couple APs where we're pushing that because we're testing different software loads. And so far so good, but that one's got 25 subscribers on it. We haven't pushed any out there with 35 or 40. Which we're looking forward to, but we want to get a little bit more confidence in where the software is before we do that.
Sure. Okay. All right, and then what about? Are you looking just at line of sight then, or?
Primarily line of sight. We have some closer range. I'd say near line of sight, but it's link budget dependent. So if we think we can get enough signal, the OFDMA does help. We get a little bit. More receiver sensitivity on both sides of the link, and obviously just the wireless can bounce around and reassemble a little bit better than just OFDM. The OFDMA does step up a little bit. I mean, this arguably OFDMA has been around basically since LTE, and it's something that Wi-Fi had been missing. Wi-Fi based chipsets have been missing for the latter part of a decade. So to finally see it getting added into the Wi-Fi 6 and beyond generation, it makes a difference in not only performance but top tier performance, but interference mitigations. I expect to start seeing better performance at OFDMA. The scheduler is so much more improved. So in theory, we should be able to cram more bits per hertz into an access point. And I say theory, but that's been proven time and time again on standards-based technologies like 3GPP based technologies where they're cramming thousands of mobile users on a cell. And that's because of things like OFDMA scheduling.
Right. Okay. All right, great. I'm going to pop this up real quickly here, but we will send out the recording and the slide deck. So if you want to reach out to Alpha Wireless or Tim directly, you can certainly do that. I'm going to hit a few comments on the Cambium side. I'll cover a little bit about AFC. I know the word is still getting out there on how AFC works and the experiences people have had so far. And then I'll talk a little bit about the roadmap. Cam talked about what's coming and what he's anxiously awaiting. And I'll give you kind of an overview where things stand as of today. So I always pop up this one to introduce Cambium. Most of the folks on this call probably are pretty familiar with Cambium, but we do cover what we call the one network, which is really 4 categories of point-to-point, Wi-Fi, outdoor and indoor switching, and then what we'll primarily talk about today is the point-to-multipoint and the variety of different bands. And we'll specifically be talking about the ePMP platform. So ePMP has been around for over 11 years now. We have 4 million radios deployed out there, and this is the 4th generation. So this is, as a platform, this has had very long legs, and it has become really well proven as far as that multi-generation compatibility. So with the 4000 series, it will talk backwards to a Force 300 subscriber module, and you can use that as backwards compatibility. What we always talk about is performance, scalability, and interference tolerance, and then this TCO, which is really around the 3-year hardware warranty and the fact that you can reach out to the Cambium support team. One of the great benefits you get with ePMP is you can oftentimes you're interacting directly with the developers on the product as well. So we pride ourselves on being very available and talking and discussing and being open with issues and questions that might be coming up about the product. So that's kind of a quick summary. Of course, happy to take any questions, but I'm not going to make this a complete commercial. I will try to highlight that there are 2 platforms in the 4000 series, or 2 different variants. There's a 5 gigahertz version that does an 8x8 multi-user MIMO, and you can kind of see that in the upper right. That's both a integrated sector antenna as well as this connectorized one, which is a connectorized 8x8 AP is a bit of an experiment for Cambium. It's sort of breaking new ground and being able to do split sectors and a variety of different nice applications with that connectorized access point. So that is now shipping, and we're starting to see all kinds of new and interesting applications of that using a variety of different antenna techniques, whether it's sectors or horns or dishes for a variety of reasons. And the dishes again on the connectorized SMs. And then on 6 gigahertz, which is different hardware, so it is a different access point and different subscriber modules. The main difference with 6 gig is because we generally expect there to be a low noise environment for the time being, we can support the 160 meg channels, and with that 4600C that Cam mentioned, you can also do 4K QAM, so you can do that highest modulation, and then you can put the dish antenna on there. So what you get with all of this is a lot of flexibility. So that's where we talked about not one solution fits all, but certainly you can pick what size access points you want, what kind of antenna configuration you want, and then similarly with the subscriber modules. So let's talk a little bit about 6 gigahertz and the introduction of this band. This has been a work in progress for multiple years at this point, and we finally crossed the finish line, or I guess I could say we crossed the start line earlier this year when the FCC approved both the Uni 5 and Uni 7 band in the US, and then in Canada you also get access to the Uni 6 band, so you get an extra 100 megahertz of spectrum in Canada. Really, the point of this spectrum was that there was a lot of areas in the country that had wide open channels that weren't being used. The primary use of this is licensed microwave, traditionally for freight rail companies, electric utilities, some oil and gas, and also some WISPs historically as well. That's a lot of that has been moving and migrating up to 11, 18 gig, but there's still a fair amount of 6 gig out there. But there's a lot of pockets where it's not being used. And so the FCC said, how can I kind of refarm this and make it available as an unlicensed spectrum? So that's kind of the background. The nice thing is it's 850 megahertz of new spectrum. The way that the FCC is proposed and is implemented protecting those incumbent license holders is through something called an AFC. The AFC is sole purpose in life is to let an unlicensed radio know what channels it can use and what power levels it can use on those channels. So every time a radio powers up, whether it's an AP, an SM, or a point-to-point end, it powers up, it collects its lat long and elevation, sends that out to the AFC server in the cloud. The cloud has a view into the ULS database of all the incumbent license holders, and then it sends back to that radio, here's the channels I can use, and here's the power levels on each of those channels that I can use. It's not granting any exclusivity, any priority. It's a very simple view of the world. It's much less complex than how CBRS works, where you have PAL licenses and general access. It is really letting you know what channels I can use. And kind of, you can see here a sample of a GUI. This is the ePMP GUI showing the gray bars are all of the channels that are available at that particular location. And then the green one is the channel that's been selected. But you can see here, it's not saying you have to use one channel. It's saying pick any of these channels as your channel of operation. One other quick point on this is some people have asked about what do I need to do to get on the AFC server. What we've done is we've integrated the AFC interface into the radio. So when you purchase it, it is included with that radio and for the life of the radio, and it gives you the pre-configured, so it knows where to reach the AFC. We happen to use the Qualcomm AFC. There's multiple AFC providers out there. In the most recent release, we added a proxy capability, so you can use a proxy server to proxy out to that AFC. Because one of the sort of speed bumps on this is that every radio has to individually reach out to the AFC server. So adding that proxy server was a key step in making this more simplified. The portfolio on 6 gig is pretty straightforward. We have, I'll start on the right, there's 2 access points, the 4600. That's the one that you saw in the pictures from Tim and Cam on what they're deploying. We also have a 2x2. I always call it the little brother of the 4600. This is a 2x2, perfect for maybe sticking a horn on there and doing a MicroPop or a small cell. Maybe I want to complement the tower that has the 3 or 6 or 4 sectors that you have up on the tower. So you have that sort of flexibility to serve. Maybe I just want to serve 2, 3, 5 homes. I can do that with the 4600L. And then on the subscriber side, we see that there's a pretty good mix between the 4625, which is an integrated dish, 25 dBi dish, and then the 4600C, which has, as I mentioned before, the key spec of being a 4K QAM capability. So not only can you put your own dish on there, you get the higher modulation, higher performance. This integrated dish is probably the higher runner at this point. It is a lower price point, but if you're looking for that maximum capacity and you want that flexibility of putting your own dish on there, 4600C is a great solution. I don't know if I put it on the roadmap slide, but next year, probably in the springtime of next year, I call it second quarter, we'll introduce a panel antenna. So those of you that are familiar with the ePMP Force 180s or the Force 300-16, it'll be a similar form factor. So it'll be about a 16 dBi integrated panel and sort of that horizontal form factor. So that'll be coming out in second quarter of next year. Speaking of the roadmap, I know there's a lot of interest in this. So the way to kind of decipher this page is that the top row, that releases that start with a 4, are products that we recommend running if you're running an ePMP 3000 network or a 3 series network. So the latest release is 481 that was just released a couple months ago. If you're running 4600 or if you're running the new 4500 series, we recommend being on the 5.7 line. The current official release is 5.7.1, and that was also just released literally, I think, within the last month, maybe 3 weeks ago. And you'll see there's a lot of features coming on these releases. So that was only 6 weeks after the 5.7 release. So you've got a lot of capabilities coming. The things that were jumped out here are, I didn't get into this too much, but there is a difference between standard mode and fixed mode on the clients. Fixed mode requires that AFC, so I need to be able to have that always always live GPS connection so that I can connect to the AFC. If for whatever reason I can't do that, it will fail over to what we call standard mode. That drops 6 dB below what the access point is 6 dB of EIRP below the access point. So you lose some range, but it's another mode of operation that has been defined for 6 gigahertz. I mentioned the proxy is in there. And then as we look out into the future, 2 major releases. I know a lot of people are anxious to see these. 5.8.x, that will add the transmit beamforming capability. It'll also add MIR, quality of service, maximum information rate for QoS capability. And then that we expect to have as an official release by the end of Q3, which will be the end of September. And then we also expect to start the beta for the MU-MIMO capability. That's been being tested already with some alpha customers, but we'll go to what we call open beta in September, and then with the expectation that that'll be commercial release in Q4. And then Dimitri and team are always cooking up lots of other little sort of improvements, enhancements, scalability improvements that will come along with these releases. One of the ones that I'm really intrigued by is the ability to have split channel. So you can do, for example, downlink. You can do say 160 meg channels downlink, but maybe 40 meg channels in the uplink, or 80 meg channels in the uplink. So that gives you the benefit of narrowing the channel as those packets arrive back at the tower, where there's typically higher noise floor. You can use that uplink direction where you also don't need as much capacity to use a narrower channel. So that's another benefit that we get with the 4 series product, and you'll see a lot of other features like that coming as we continue to sort of shake out all the things that are achievable with this 4 series. So I'm going to open it up to questions here. There's quite a few that have come in, so let me kind of go back here. So there were some questions about the roadmap. I think I answered those. TDD is working now. MU-MIMO is coming in that release I mentioned. There's a question here for you, Tim, about what does Alpha recommend for a MicroPop? It says they're heavily dependent on MicroPops to reach customers as opposed to the large towers. Does Alpha address that, or do you recommend just using one of your sectors?
Well, yeah, from a MicroPop standpoint, the antenna is only 24 inches tall, so it could really easily be integrated into a small cell solution on a pole type of situation, or on the side of a building for that fact. So it's very, very small in form factor.
It depends on what you're trying to cover, I would say. I mean, this 2 APs would give you 120 degrees of coverage and obviously capacity, but like Tim mentioned, it's only about 25 inches tall, so we're looking about that by about yay wide. It's pretty. Yeah, I wouldn't call it. It's not going to be an Omni. You're not going to see something that tight, but it is a pretty compact form factor that you can hide in. And in some situations, of course, I don't have any pictures today, but we put them on the facade of some buildings, and they effectively blend right in with some of the sidings that we see out there.
Yeah, that's something we're seeing more too. Like you mentioned, Camo, like when they're doing on facades and stuff like that. So there's a lot of these graphic companies now. You can go out and take pictures of the facades and stuff and give it to a graphics company. They print it out in vinyl, and then they can wrap your antenna in vinyl and makes it look like it blends right straight in with the system. So, yeah.
Thankfully, I have not had to do that, but yes, I've seen it.
Tim, a more tactical question for you. Where are Alpha antennas manufactured, and what's the availability of those?
Yeah, that's a good question. It all kind of depends on what what model and what customer and stuff like that. These particular units here, we develop and we're building a lot of them for CAM because they're deploying a lot of sites. So we have a development partner out of China that build these for us that helps us keep the product cost down lower. We do have some of these already in our distribution network here in North America. So if somebody needs any, they have them. Some of our other larger antennas and that kind of stuff get developed and built out of Ireland. So it could be a variation of both locations.
There's a question here about, well, I guess there's a couple questions around 6 gigahertz. Is the max, what's the max EARP? So it is by the FCC rules, it is 36 dBm. So that's a little different than 5.8 in how that historically was done, where you could have larger dishes on the subscriber modules and kind of treat it a little bit as an asymmetrical. But with 6 gig, all the links are maximum, well, they're symmetrical and maximum at 36 dBm. There's a question here about what kind of a core network is needed for ePMP. So, well, maybe I'll let, I can give you a short answer, but Cam, maybe you can comment on what do you guys use for provisioning and for billing, and if you don't want to name names, that's okay, but just in general, how do you approach the ePMP back office?
I mean, core network can take us in a lot of different directions there. We might need another webinar. Every network's a little bit different, and I'm not going to preach which way is the right way or the wrong way, because there's 20 different ways to build a network, and which one's right. What works for you is what I would say. So I know a number of people, we use licensed backhauls pretty much exclusively for all of our sites. When I say pretty much exclusively, it's like 99% of all of our backhauls are legitimately licensed, and you guys can go easily pull that from the FCC database. You'll see a wonderful spider web of Nextlink licensed links across the middle of the United States pretty aggressively. And that's the way we choose to do it. We know we can guarantee a much better quality of service that way. We don't have to fight around with unlicensed backhauls causing problems here and there. Now, with that said, with actually the 4000 series, we have some small cell locations or MicroPops that we will drop in a point-to-point 5 gig, because the channel capacities on Wi-Fi 6, if we're trying to deliver just a couple hundred meg to a site, or even 300 or 400 meg to a site to offer a very consistent 100 meg service, or even better in some cases, we use a point-to-point 5 gig solution with Cambium, and that's worked out pretty well. We've been pretty happy with the performance of that. That's some of the first radios we got when the 4000 series platform was announced, and some of the first initial testing we did, and they do rock it out in the point-to-point space pretty well in the 5 gig. We've done some with the 4600Cs acting as point-to-point. We've tested that out well with great success. And the amount of throughput it's capable of getting in smaller channel sizes, it's really kind of does change the game a little bit for how we do MicroPops. I know a lot of us are using 60 gig to feed some MicroPops now as well. I mean, but this is not something to shy away from as, again, another tool in your toolbox. Particularly if you're using 60 gig as a point-to-point mechanism, this is a solid backup at a very minimum. That's going to give you a little bit more range and certainly rain fade characteristics that behave a little bit better. So we do that. Then from a network perspective and provisioning, we have a lot of custom stuff that we've written over the years that does all the pre-provisioning, and we basically load up a site, the GPS coordinates, and it pulls down a configuration file, pushes it every AP. Then we go through and manually provide the channels that need to be done through, we call it network optimization team. We have a team that's dedicated to the releasing of sites to the network for sale, as well as optimizing those networks throughout their life. Provisioning and customer experience, we use BillMax. BillMax is our OSS platform. The interface is straight from 1995 on the face of it. But I'll tell you, I've never had a billing. I've never not missed a payment. I've always been able to bill my customers, which is always a great thing. Now, there's a lot of other software applications that my software team is built around it, so we're not really using the front end anymore. We just use a lot of their APIs and build our tools into it, much like a lot of you all are, and other software applications. But a lot of custom stuff. A lot of things that are kind of off the shelf and different provisioning scripts, and a lot of it will actually be, we're actually going to be publicizing some of that to our GitHub channel, hopefully in the next few months. So we want to give the actual community access to some of the things that we've been doing just to speed up some of the efficiencies across networks. including little scripts like how do we go through and automate programming. We are also using CN Maestro for the data collection and monitoring of all the ePMP platform across the company. So we have every one of our ePMPs in a controller. We do the hosted controllers. We have a controller per market. And we use the APIs to aggregate all that information to drive data change. So we're watching modulation levels real time, and we're looking for frequent channel optimization real time because channel conditions change throughout the day, particularly in 5 gigahertz right now. I'm sure eventually we'll get to that point, 6 gigahertz, where channel conditions are going to be more impacted as it becomes more popular. But we don't have as much, because of these symmetrical power rules, we don't have as much to battle because there is a lot more consistency, a little bit more control on what people can do as far as just cranking up the power to 11, if you will, on some of the subscriber side. So we've been able to see that come in. Maestro has been really great with the data collection for the stuff that we're looking for to tune that. We've turned that into Grafana reports that are live that monitor every APs with poor signal, why they may have poor signals. We've correlated that to how many people have poor signal and did somebody call in the last 30, 60, 90 days on that AP specifically. So we'll focus in on that. And not only is it a list, it's also heat map. So we can look at the greater area and see if we see a trend of issues that may be popping up relative to, hey, just maybe on a bad channel, or we have a high level of retransmissions coming out of the wireless interface of an AP. So all that stuff we're monitoring pretty regularly to optimize the network for, obviously customer experience is everything in this world. So we want to make sure nobody's having any buffering issues, and that's the stuff that we look at on a day-to-day basis across 100,000 users. As you can imagine, there's a lot of data coming. And we have about half of our entire customer base is running on Cambium, so we have a pretty significant volume of data coming through Maestro that's helping us operate and tune the network a little bit differently. Now, we don't have all that stuff's not done in Maestro, but we are using it as a data collection, and then we make an aggregator using Prometheus from the Grafana front end to put all that stuff together.
Okay.
It's a long way to get
Great.
there, but there's a lot of stuff we do. Happy to talk to anybody about that if you want to set up individual calls.
Yeah, I think we hit your area of deep interest here, so that's that's great. I think sounds like your experience is very similar to many WISPs that kind of grew over the time and grew over the years, and so it's kind of a combination of homegrown tools and tools that are third party or from the actual supplier of the radios. So certainly, if you're getting started day one, I'd probably encourage you to embark on a similar path, where put some tools together that you think you can just accomplish the job. CN Maestro is our management system. It's available as what we call essentials. That doesn't have any charge associated with it. Many customers choose to go for the Maestro X, which gives you some of the APIs and some of the longer data storage, and there's some nice features that you get with Maestro X. But if you're just getting started, have a look at CN Maestro. And of course, Link Planner is a great tool that many of our customers use. And then CN Heat, if the area of your coverage has the LiDAR data, CN Heat can be a great tool with its main goal of being really highly accurate pre-qual and single truck roll installs. So how do I make sure I'm only rolling that truck once? And that's where CN Heat really can help a lot. So Tim, I had a question for you as well. What's next for Alpha? Where do you see the technology going, and whether it's 5 gig, 6 gig, other frequencies? What's up? What's new? What's coming from Alpha?
Yeah, we keep an eye on what's going on across the markets, what's hot and stuff. We work closely with all our clients, what they're trying to accomplish and do. Right now we have a few customers that we're working with to integrate full new end-to-end type solutions. So we actually have a couple new platforms we put out here recently where we're integrating antennas with actual poles that are direct vary poles, so they're quick to deploy, easy to deploy, fast in and out, lowers your cost type of thing with cabinets. So full turnkey solution. So we're expanding our product line from that standpoint. You know, and also we're just constantly looking at, you know, how to better improve the way we do deployments. So whether it's on, you know, small canister antennas, or we have a new platform now. It's a very modular type of omni type of antenna or sectorized, whichever way you want to deploy it, that will wrap around existing poles. So it's a 3-sectored solution that comes in, wraps around it, easy to integrate on existing infrastructure. So you don't have to buy poles. The you know, the jurisdictions like them because they are, you don't require a forklift, they don't require a sidearm bracket or anything like that. So yeah, we keep an eye on those. We're constantly trying to evolve those platforms for our customers and help deployments. Yeah.
Okay. Great. I had one other question on the chat line here was it's a question about ePMP and how much 5 gig versus 6 gig are we seeing deployed? And it's kind of again a bit of a broad question because it kind of depends on where you are in the world. Certainly in North America, the excitement and interest is around 6 gigahertz. People are wanting to kick the tires on this new spectrum and see all the things you can accomplish with it, whether it's higher speed packages or relieving some of those congested towers that might be noise floor limited on 5 gig. But we also see a lot of interest and then outside of the US, I think there's a few people on the call from outside the US. 6 gig is emerging. We're seeing it deployed in Eastern Europe as a licensed spectrum. We're seeing places like Mexico, Brazil, South Africa start to adopt 6 gig and adopt similar rules to the US. We think Australia and New Zealand will follow in suit probably within the next 12, 18 months. They're probably a little bit further behind. So it depends on where you are in the world. Then I would say on the 5 gig side, there's a lot of, because of the 8x8, you get the, and when we have the beamforming coming in this next release, you get some of that beamforming gain. And we're seeing even some existing locations where I'm using a Force 325, an older, you know, the 3 series dish-based subscriber module. We're seeing that bump up maybe 1 or 2 or sometimes even 3 modulation levels just by having that that beamforming benefit of the 8 columns in an 8x8 solution. So something else to keep an eye on. So it's a mixed bag, and I think, you know, a lot of customers will want to upgrade their 5 gig networks, just especially as they start to offload some top talkers into 6 gig. It kind of gives them a way to kind of repurpose that spectrum. Let's see. We're about out of time. I don't want to keep everybody longer than of interest, but is there maybe, Tim, while I kind of dissect this next question, Tim, is there anything you want to just say in summary about Alpha and the benefits of this approach?
I think that, you know, we've touched on a lot of the key things. You know, one of the things Alpha's, one of the things we pride ourselves in is working really closely with our partners, you know, like with Nextlink or with Cambium. You know, we take it to heart to, you know, to make sure that we work and listen to the customers to understand what type of things are they trying to solve. And then take that and try to replicate that into a business model, both for us from a you know, developer and an OEM, to allow them to do their thing and make sure that their operators meet their needs of the deployments, and then also adding in a lot of the operational things that I've learned over the 30 years of RF and wireless in general is, you know, trying to understand how the jurisdictions think or don't think about solutions, and try to figure out ways to try to get those folks on board for deployments. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tim. And Cam, it's been really helpful. I really appreciate you sharing your experience with the group. And any final parting words from you?
No, I appreciate it, and by all means, I mean, a lot of you all have had a chance to work with me throughout my career. Happy to have, you know, sidebar conversations. Feel free to reach out to me. You schedule something, or you know how to find me on Facebook or whatever have you. And love to get together and talk about some of the things we're doing, some of the lessons learned, some other tools that we're doing. But all in all, I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate Alpha for working with us and letting me kind of beat them with a stick until we get what we're looking for. And Cambium, and I know you guys are getting beat with a stick on the software side, and I know I'm probably the biggest one with a stick waving right now. But every time the team is getting better, they're open to feedback. Yeah, I'd like to see it like we all would. Can we have it tomorrow? Can we have it yesterday? Right. But we're getting there, and in every way is a little bit closer. So we're excited for what's to come. We're certainly excited for the Wi-Fi 7 stuff that's going to we'll all look forward to, and link aggregation across that. So we have some exciting stuff. It's a really exciting time to be in the industry, and we'll see what kind of throughputs we can get. But I mean, I remember a day when everybody was worried about doing 100 meg. Now we're talking about gig and multi-gig services to the home wirelessly. So it's definitely been a fun time to watch the industry change.
All right. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it. I know that Cambium will be out at Wispapalooza. It's coming up quick. It's I guess maybe 2 months from now. It's coming up 8 weeks from now. So look forward to seeing everybody there. Alpha, I know at least some of your team will be there. I don't know if you're going to have a booth or not, but I know that some of your team will be there.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, it would be a good chance to be face to face. Cam will be there. So it'll be a good chance to be face to face. And again, on your point about exciting times, it really is. 6 gig is a whole new ball game as far as the amount of spectrum that's available and the capacities that can be achieved. So really, encourage you to check it out and get started in there, and we'll go from there. So with that, I think we've covered the questions. There are some detailed ones that, Tim, maybe you can follow up with individually. We'll share that question list with you, and if there's some specific ones to get back on. It looks like there's a request about some feature requests there, so that's always good.
Yeah.
And then with that, I'm going to pass it back to you, Lexi, and let us know when can people expect to receive the recording and such.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce, and thanks, Cam and Tim, for all that helpful information. We will be sending out an email with the recording of this webinar and the slide deck tomorrow, so you can all look out for that in your inbox. And if you have any final questions, you can email us at marketing@cambiumnetworks.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.